There's a spell I'll never tell. Yeah, I like you, that's for sure. Never have to close the door.
Hi guys, welcome back to Exmo Lex. Quite a while back, towards the beginning of my YouTube journey, I made a video talking about why I'm making videos and why I'm talking about the Mormon Church. It's been quite a long time since I've watched that video, but I'm pretty sure that I kind of more focused on why I'm bitter about this and why ex-Mormons might be bitter about it. That's probably been about 2 years ago now, so I did kind of want to go back to that topic, revisit it, and sort of frame it in a different way. This time I want to talk about why I specifically make ex-Mormon content rather than why I'm bitter towards the church after leaving it. Obviously, I get a lot of hate comments from Mormons, and one of the most common hate comments is, "This is so mean, why are you doing this?" So I'm hoping this video will answer that question if you've ever had it. Let's just start with the fact that the Mormon Church harms people and it's a cult. I've done videos about this. I know of other creators who've done videos about it. So I'm just going to give a brief synopsis of why the church is a cult, but I will leave links in the description if you want to go over more of that. Please keep in mind that I'm going to do just a few indicators of a cult here. And if you want to get the full picture, I really encourage you to do more research about it. The LDS Church promotes dependence and obedience. The leaders of the church have strongly urged obedience to the point of almost compelling members to be obedient. The church discourages members from looking at any information that is not church approved. That is very concerning. They have also historically withheld or distorted information. Many members of the church were members for decades or even since they were born before finding out that Joseph Smith married teenagers, took part in polyandry, and married mother-daughter pairs. Or that the Book of Abraham was a complete fabrication, or that Joseph Smith was taking part in illegal activities, etc., etc. The church promotes feelings of guilt, shame, and unworthiness. The entire process of getting a temple recommend revolves around being worthy enough to receive one. The church labels some emotions as worldly, sinful, or wrong. Case in point, teaching that anger is a sin. I recently did an entire video about that. Another cult indicator is that the group changes your identity, possibly even your name. Within the church, members are asked to call each other by their title or by brother or sister rather than by first name. For example, Bishop Smith, Elder Smith, Brother Smith, Sister Smith, President Smith, etc. And then once a member has gone through the temple endowment session, they now have a new secret name. There is a lot of importance placed on the new name, and it's seen as extremely sacred. The church also exploits its members financially. If a member wants to have a current temple recommend and be in good standing with the church, they are required to give 10% of their income to the church. This allows them to enter the temple and in turn the celestial kingdom, aka VIP Mormon heaven. That is, of course, if they are also following all the other requirements. I could go on and on about this. There are probably at least another couple dozen indicators of a cult that the church hits on, but I think you get the picture. I will leave more links and resources in the description if you want to learn more. The church is a cult, and a harmful one at that. Why do I continue to talk about it? Well, for one, it harms people. The deception many members experience can be so hurtful. I have personal experience with that. It turned my life upside down. It was awful. What other harms are there? Well, the misogyny is one. The church has and has had some very anti-woman teachings. I've done a whole video about this as well. I will leave a link in the description. But did you know at one point, the church didn't even allow women to give a prayer in meetings? The church actively discouraged women from getting a job outside of the home for decades. And they also taught that a woman's only purpose on earth is to reproduce and be there for your husband. The church also has an extremely racist past. Black people, including church members, were not allowed to take part in sacred temple ordinances until the late 70s. Why? The church has never given an adequate answer. The church has also historically taught that people with dark skin are cursed, either because of their transgressions before this life or during this life. Leaders in decades past have made extremely racist statements, including Prophet Brigham Young, who said that he was a firm believer in slavery. Or the first presidency saying in 1947 that Black people are not entitled to the full blessings of the gospel. They also claimed that that was doctrine, and they have also said over the years that doctrine cannot change. Which leads me to another harm that the church does, which is making people feel crazy. It is extremely common for the church to flip-flop on its teachings. It is a very different church now than it was in the mid-1800s when it was created. To be frank, I think a lot of people wouldn't even recognize it as the same religion. They say over and over that the gospel is and always has been the same, but they change things and go back and forth all the time. I've done a couple of videos highlighting many contradictions between church leaders, and I will leave a link for that in the description. You can't go around saying that you're God's mouthpiece on the earth and that you could never lead people astray, and then lead people astray and have to go back and forth and claim that God is changing his mind, but then say God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And doctrine never changes. It's ridiculous, and it's part of the reason that so many of us who leave feel gaslit. Yet another way the church harms is by having bad policies in place that have allowed children to be abused. I have personal experience with this as well. My childhood bishop is in prison for molesting teenage boys in my ward. This is not uncommon. For a long time, it was standard practice for bishops to have one-on-one interviews alone with children as young as 8 years old, in which they would ask them sexually inappropriate questions about themselves with no other adults in the room. This is only recently starting to change, and this still happens. The church also harms the LGBTQ community. They've been blatantly homophobic and transphobic over the years. Dallin H. Oaks, who is currently, today, in 2022, the first counselor in the first presidency of the Mormon Church, once said that he believes in retaining criminal penalties against homosexuality. So who has been harmed by the church? The LGBTQ community, people of color, women, children, and many, many other members who have felt deceived, gaslit, and lied to. I'd say the majority of the ex-Mormon community feels this way, and that's tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people, and this is just scratching the surface. Why do I and many other people speak out about their former religion? Because we were hurt by it. Our families were hurt by it. Our friends were hurt by it. We see other people in our community being hurt by it. We want to help others who were hurt and feel alone. We want things to change. We don't want future generations to be hurt by it. We want a better future for people who decide to stay in the church, and we want a soft place to land for the people who decide to leave. Many Mormons will say that the church is perfect, but the members are not. I don't think they're taking into account the fact that the church would not exist if it wasn't for the members. Even those in the highest leadership positions are just men, are they not? I could go on another tangent here because this is yet another thing that the church goes back and forth on. One minute, the apostles are called of God and God's mouthpieces on the earth who can never lead us astray. And the next, they're just fallible men called by God and they can make mistakes. If you can recognize that these men aren't perfect, you can recognize that the church isn't perfect. If you can recognize that the church is not perfect, then you can recognize that there is room for criticism and room for positive change. And if you can recognize that, we are on the same side. I will not be ending my public criticism of the church anytime soon. There is so much wrong with it, and calling it out is the only thing I can do to help fix it. What I talked about here today is only scratching the surface. I get thousands more positive comments and feedback than I get negative ones. Besides that fact, I'm far more compelled by a comment telling me that the information I put out there changed their family's life than by a comment telling me that I made them upset. If you are a member of the church and you made it this far into the video, please try to understand that I'm not out here trying to do the work of Satan and burn the church to the ground. I'm not an evil human being corrupted by worldly desires. I didn't leave the church because I wanted to sin. I am a wife and a mother. I'm doing what I think is right. I recognize that the church is not going anywhere, and I even have family members who I think can flourish inside the church in a way they are unable to without it. I want the church to be a safer, kinder, more accepting, and a much more truthful place to be than it is right now. If you want that too, we're on the same page. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you want to see more, I have over 100 other videos. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell if you want to be notified every time I post something new. You can find me on other platforms as well. Links are in the description. And special thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel. They truly are the ones keeping the studio lights on, and I appreciate them so much. Extra special thank you to Anthony Guthrie, Craig Call, Doug Davis, Mormonland, The Guiltiest Place on Earth, Jason Wilkins, Melissa Jane, Tans, and the Exmo Candle Company for supporting at the Demon tier on my Patreon. If you would like to support the channel, there's links for that in the description. Thank you again for being here. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!
Never revealing no secrets you're keeping. These promises strong as a spell. I'll never tell.